welcome. I am Ellen Wingero, host of the Ellen at Blackfllm Videocast, and I'm joined by my co-host, Hakim Graham. Hey.
Hey, how you doing? Nice cut.
Good.
Want to say that in public, you know.
Thank you, thank you. I recently did the big chop. I feel good about it. Appreciate it. Today we're discussing episodes 4, 5, and 6 of HBO series I May Destroy You, written and created by Michaela Coel. There's a lot to unpack, so we're just going to dive into it. Episode 4 is titled That Was Fun, and it's set 2 months after the incident. And Arabella meets with a therapist who encourages her to find ways to cope with her trauma. And also her book agents assign her with another client called Zane to help her with the writing process, right? So that's the setup. So 2 major events happen in this episode. Kwame, who's one of Arabella's best friends, he hooks up with a guy that he meets on an app, on a hookup app. And he gets sexually assaulted after he's already had consensual sex with him, right? So wrap your brain around that for 2 seconds. And then the second thing is Arabella has sex with Zane, the publisher's, client that was sent to her. And that gets a little dicey, but Arabella doesn't recognize what happened until after. So the things that I found fascinating about the lead up to these 2 major events are how Kwame's day started off.
Well, yes.
Right?
He started off with his own date, and then he made this hookup, and the app is Tinder, not to advertise for him, but the reality is that's the way it works. And then there's this anonymous name thing going on, apparently, and that's how we begin the episode, which was really, really, for me, it was traumatic. I'll be honest. It was just...
Well, but before we start that, Kwame's day starts, we see him in a bathroom stall.
Right.
With his first hookup of the day with some random grocery store clerk that he also used the app to find.
Ironically, with his mother or grandmother, was it?
I think it was grandmother. He was shopping with
grandmother. And I was like, wow, dude. Okay. I mean, again, I think after our generation, or maybe it's our generation too, everybody's like really sexually fluid. So it was matter of fact. So it was like really cool.
The recent day app is Grindr for gay men. That's the app that they use to figure things out. So in between the day, Kwame meets a guy the old-fashioned way, right? Just face to face. The guy thinks Kwame is attractive, whatever. So they end up like kind of hanging out. And then later that day, Kwame uses the dating app again, finds another hookup, and invites this new dude that he just met to come along if he's okay with it, but he doesn't have to do anything.
Right. Yeah. And that was a little awkward for me. I mean, I was just like, if you're going to meet up with somebody from an app and then you're going to take somebody with you, is that pre-negotiated or?
Yeah, that was weird. I kind of got the vibe that Kwame is a little awkward when it comes to anything outside of sex, because why wouldn't he take the time to get to know this regular dude who seems pretty cool and down to earth? So that was interesting.
Well, it's really, to further that, it's really interesting also because he's an instructor, a ropes instructor. So you would think he would have that outgoing personality that it would translate.
Yeah.
I guess it doesn't, and which made it awkward for me. Like, I didn't get why he met this nice guy, and then he takes the nice guy on this Grindr date, and which leads us up to where he has his incident. So I'll let you take it from there. Yeah.
So they get to this guy's house, and right off the bat, I don't know about you, Hop, but I could tell how thirsty this hookup guy was, right? He's much bigger in stature than Kwame. And the minute he opens the door, he's like a hyena who's seen his dinner for the night. You could just tell.
I mean, it was like Granny and the wolf out here. I mean, that was like, wow, dude. He was like, come in. And he almost didn't pay the other guy any attention except for the fact that he was there. And he was like, well, is he going to join in? And then he started to elaborate. He's like, "You're so sexy," and that's when I got I mean, my bells went off. I'm like, something's not right here.
Just by his disposition, and you can, and the guy that Kwame brought along with him, you can tell how uncomfortable he was. I think, he was just as uncomfortable with the situation as we were as the audience watching it.
Right, and which goes back to what I was saying. Michaela's writing's great, and her writers and whomever. Yeah. That was just perfect.
Yeah, that setup was beautiful. And so, they're in this room. It's very transactional, right? And so the guy, so Kwame's friend is kind of standing over there to the left, watching this, still looking very awkward. The hyena, we're just going to call him the hyena. The hyena, is getting ready, for the show to pop off. And he asks Kwame, do you do bareback, or can we do bareback, which means no condom, right?
Right. Yeah. I think the exact words is, I want to hit that bareback. And I was just like, wow, that's pretty forward for the first time.
Yeah. And Kwame's like, no, I don't do that. But then the hyena follows up with, well, I thought you did everything. That was a very telling line.
Right. Exactly. And that's exactly what I thought. And we discussed that. I was like, that's a telling sign. And I think that would set alarms off for anybody, I think. But in this instance, it didn't set alarms off, which was a little I guess unsettling for me, because I thought Kwame was like more the how do I say, he had more street sense. You know what I mean? He was more in tune. And again, this is just maybe my impression, but again, things are different when it's your love life, and then there's difference when there's your work or casual life.
And when it comes to men, it's all very forward. It's all kind of already written out. We know what it is. There's no skirting around, the topic. You're doing this via an app. So in this app, you've already like set up what it is. So I mean, the guy knew that Kwame did everything. How did he know that? Right? Either Kwame had told him that previously, or it's part of the app, Kwame's profile on the app. Who knows? Right.
And of course, there was a setup or a lead up. So that was also, like I said, really awkward for me to see, because I was like, wow, did I miss something?
Yeah, no, that's how it is.
which is ironically when his friend that came with him felt really uncomfortable to the point that he wanted to leave, and he did. So I thought that was interesting, because just opposed to Kwame, he was a little bigger.
Yes.
So which brought him closer to the hyena, as you so worded. So the hyena was only capable of going so far in terms of how he dealt with Kwame.
Correct.
When he was in the room, which leads up to the next scene.
So, they end up having sex, and it's the regular way, not bareback and, from the back or whatever. And so that goes off smoothly, right? So Kwame, starts to leave. He's fully clothed at this point, and he's trying to walk towards the door, and the hyena stops him, and he slams the door shut. And I think Kwame's hand or finger gets caught in it, and you kind of see Kwame jerk back like in pain. Yeah. So it was at that moment that I knew this was about to go in a weird direction.
This is the point of in the movie where there's a pause frame, and it goes, now Kwame just messed up.
Right. Because there's no getting out of that. This dude is much bigger than Kwame. I don't know that Kwame can take dude, right? So he pushes. So Kwame's like, no, what are you doing? He says no. 1 time, 2 times, maybe even 3 times. The dude pushes him on the bed. Now Kwame's on his stomach, and the dude proceeds to sexually assault him without a condom, with the bareback like he'd asked for previously. Yeah. And that was such a hard scene to watch. I mean, I still have flashbacks of it, because Kwame did such a great job just portraying that scene, that person in that predicament.
Yeah, he did set his boundaries at first, and I think he was pretty stern with it. There was no interpretation of what he said. It was pretty direct. Yeah. I'm into everything, but I'm not into that.
Right.
And I think that's kinship to all of these kind of situations where, on the other side, women, when they say no or they say stop or say no, I'm not into this, and cats just don't hear them, or I don't know what goes through your mind, because for me that would trigger me to just shut off entirely. Boom,
Immediately.
we're done. Uh,
Immediately. Yeah.
which again, as you were, I was like thrown back. Watching it was tough, and I was like, wow, wow.
Yeah.
So it gives you precedence, further precedence for what Arabella went through as well.
Exactly. And so, great segue. So, meanwhile, Arabella is meeting up with Zane, right, the new client. And what I thought was interesting about the lead up to that was Zane gave her an option to either we could go to a bar and continue this book discussion, or we could go back to Julian's office where it's a little bit more private and quiet. Arabella opts to go to a bar and not Julian's office. And I don't know if you remember, but she was so triggered at the bar. She got so many flashbacks, not flashbacks, but just she was triggered by way too many things. And I thought it was fascinating that she would opt for that versus Julian's office.
Yeah, like I said in a previous review, I think she indulges herself. She kind of tries to mask her emotions and mask her problems with drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
And so that was the place, obviously, to go and mask it. And I think she thought, oh, I'll have a couple drinks and it'll just level me out. Well, when she got there, it didn't. It sort of escalated, right?
She didn't even drink. She asked for water,
She
right?
didn't drink because she, as soon as she got there, her emotions escalated. What her flashbacks, what have you, these feelings came back to her, and then I think she was just overwhelmed. And it's one thing that was I was impressed by, was she noticed that she was overwhelmed, and she immediately was like, "I'm out."
Yeah,
And
I think that's the first time we see her connect to her emotions and act accordingly.
right, exactly. So that gave me hope about, her going forward, and seeing her therapist.
Yeah. So, the next scene is she's invited Zane to her apartment. Why, I don't know.
Alice in that rabbit hole, man.
Right.
Alice in that
Like,
rabbit hole.
she can't stay out of it. She cannot stay out of it. And they, after some awkward conversation, decide to have sex. Right? Again, it's very transactional.
I don't think it was awkward. I
Um,
think it was
I mean,
matter of fact.
the back and forth questions they were asking each other, there was some awkwardness in it, which is what I think made her say, well, do you want to have sex? It just kind of came out of came out of nowhere.
No, I saw the glare. The glare was there. It was like that look. Everybody
Right?
knows that, yeah, everybody knows that look.
Oh
You get
Lord.
that pause, and that pause again, and then that awkward pause, and you're like, oh, okay. So,
Yeah.
which is often really funny. I found myself thinking the same thing. I'm like, the first thing I thought was, oh, they're going to have sex, and sure enough, she comes out and says it, and I was like,
Wow.
wow, yeah, exactly. Kind of that's where I went with. I was like, wow,
Yeah.
don't drop it like that. I said, oh, okay. But again, this is one of those things. Again, she's masking her emotions. She's masking what's really going on inside instead of getting it out. And I think that's what tends to happen. You layer it on either drugs, alcohol, or sex, or eating.
Yeah. Just to numb the pain, numb
Right.
the thought of it. So what was equally fascinating was the fact that she had, as they were kissing, she had a flashback of, the man on top of her, but this time it was Zane's face, which made her kind of jump back and get out of that moment. I thought that was great foreshadowing. The fact that it was Zane's face she saw was a regular flashback, right? So they end up having sex, and somewhere, in between there, Zane is hitting it from the back, and he decides to take off the freaking condom without telling her.
Yeah.
I almost threw my shoe at the TV.
That was
How dare he?
that was and I'm a dude. I'm gonna be honest. I'm a dude. So, wow. I think there needs to be some communication that needs to be set up, and the fact that it was put on, there's a purpose for that. So taking it off is not an option unless discussed.
Right.
And that, in my opinion, that's breaking the rules.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, Arabella is none the wiser until they finish. and she's chilling, laying on the bed, and he's in the bathroom. And I think he comes back and she asks him, like, where did you throw the condom? And she's like, what do you mean? And he's like, what do you mean? I didn't throw it away. It's right there. And that's when they now have this conversation where he says to her, I thought you could feel the difference and you were okay with it, which is insane to me.
Discussion, son. You didn't have a discussion with her. You had a discussion with yourself.
With yourself, and you made the decision to do what you did.
I was like, what?
Arabella still doesn't realize the violation in that. So she kind of, laughs it off, and she's like, oh, well, you're going to pay for the morning after pill, right?
Yeah, she looked, actually, I don't know if she was confused or she was just like kind of pondering it over, like moving it in her mind. And I guess in that moment, which is great acting also for Michaela, she made it seem as though she was like working it out or trying to balance it out in her brain.
Yeah.
Like, was this consensual? Was it, how does this work? But again, like you said, she kind of brushed it to the side, like she does some of the other things that she does, and which for me is fascinating because I have two sisters. So if that were my sister, we would definitely have to have a conversation, either one of them. So it just, wow. I don't understand how that could happen and that not erupt into something else.
And so that episode ends with Kwame leaving, and of course he's traumatized. He's crying, rightfully so, and he calls Arabella, and I'm thinking he's going to tell her, but he doesn't tell her.
Right.
And obviously, Arabella has no idea what's going on. She just thinks Kwame's calling to say hello, so she ends the call rather, abruptly because she's hanging out with Zane still, right? And that's how that episode ends, and which brings us to episode 5. Title of that is It Just Came Up. And so it finds, Arabella reassessing the sexual encounter with Zane. And also she gets a new promising lead in the investigation, which is going to now force her to tell Biagio about the assault. I thought episode 5 was a great follow-up. It answered a lot of questions. It brought a lot of things into light.
Yes.
And so it's in episode 5 that Arabella realizes that what happened to her with Zane was actually a violation. And I think it's beautiful how she found this out. She's at Zane's apartment. It's the, morning, and they've just had, a lovely night. And so she's, she's in her bra and panties, and she's, frolicking around in the apartment, just as happy as I don't know what. And then she's listening to a podcast. She kind of goes through several podcasts, and she finds one with these two chicks talking about what a violation it is for a man to take off a condom during sex and he not tell you that he took it off. And that's when the light bulb clicks.
Well, yeah, that and the fact that he says, well, I thought you could feel it. She repeats this. She's like, well, the podcast repeats this.
Yes.
Well, the common line is like, well, I thought you knew I took it off. I thought you could feel it. And I was like, and again, which triggered her, she was like, I know in her mind, and I know how I know some of my female friends talk. They were like, "Oh hell no!"
And you saw the change.
Yeah,
that was acted beautifully.
Yeah, I was like, "Whoa!" And she handled it a lot differently than I thought she would. Which was
true to her character, though.
It was true to her character, but for me, I was sitting there waiting for her to snap. I was like, "Go get him! Go get him!" She snapped, but she snapped in a way that traditionally is like Arabella. She just popped off. She walked out with a shirt on, no pants, her underwear,
no shoes,
just
his t-shirt, his button-down t-shirt,
button-down shirt, and walked into a store, got herself some khakis, and some, or it looked like Dickies actually, and then some boots, and went about her merry way. I was like, wow.
And went to get her hair cut. She went to the hair salon.
To get a hair salon. Well, she realized she had an appointment too. Right. And then, wow. I thought that, I admire her. I admire her character because of this. She's very relatable. And I think not just to women, for me, she's relatable because like she was so pissed, like she was thinking to herself, if I were to do anything or say anything right now, it would not be productive. it would not be nice. It would not be nonviolent.
Exactly. So I do appreciate the strategy that she used, and the calm
Oh
that she had over her to execute what she ended up executing, which
yeah,
is perfect. So while at the salon, the detective calls her, asks her to come in, and she goes to the police station with Terry and Kwame. And she finds out from the detective that they found some DNA on her clothes from the initial assault, right? And that they have a potential suspect, and an arrest has been made. And oh, by the way, you need to tell Biagio what happened so he can go and and give his DNA so he can be ruled out.
right.
So did you notice Kwame's disposition the entire time they were at
I
the,
did.
oh my God, my heart broke for
did.
him.
I did, and I saw I saw his the idea ruminating in his brain, so to
Oh,
speak. I was just like, wow. And then if you look at the body language, he sort of drew back to the other side,
yes.
and I was like, wow, he's tortured. He's really tortured, and that was tough to watch. I mean, obviously, we're going to get into it a little later, but it was tough to watch from a human perspective because you could see the pain, and you could see like he just wanted to come forth and say it, like it was at the precipice of his lip, you
Yeah,
know. Um, it's hard to watch something like that.
definitely, definitely. And what I thought was pretty dope about that scene was Arabella asked the detective, is it rape when a man secretly takes the condom off without consent? And both female detectives are adamant in saying yes, it absolutely is. And verbatim, they say the problem is people don't know what is a crime and what isn't, and so they don't report it, and people get away with it. That turns something in my mind.
Yeah, because it becomes a serial problem. I mean,
Yeah,
you keep doing it and doing it until somebody calls him out on it, which for me, again, is why I related to Kwame so much there because I was like, hey, dude, there's your moment. But I had to wait in my own skin because I was like, I'm jumping up the TV, like, dude, this is your moment.
please just say it, just get it out, Kwame.
Yeah, just get it out. Yeah,
And
yeah.
so the next scene is kind of him attempting to do that because he goes to the police station on his own and attempts to report this assault. And what's your point of view on how that goes down?
I think, and as I told you previously, when we had a conversation about the episodes we were going over, and I said to you that it is really interesting to see how, and this is not a competition, and this is not I'm not comparing, but it's seriously interesting to see how when a man comes to the police or comes to an authority figure and says I've been raped, and then when a woman comes to the authority figure and
Yeah,
says they've been raped, historically. Um, we all know this has been happening to women, and it happens a lot still to this day, way too much to even be conscionable. There is also men, but what's worse for men, not worse, but what's bad for men is that people are less apt to believe them or less apt to understand them because we are usually the aggressors in that sort of action. And to see it with two men is like, the idea that, oh well, you could have just defended yourself, and that's not the case. It has nothing to do with it. Again, this is also about power. Just like it is with women, it's about power over that other person. And my thing is, when you feel powerless, and also you don't feel like you're being heard, I think that breaks you apart. And
that's
that's what I saw on Kwame's face. That's what I
yeah,
saw. I mean, he just was a pile of emotion, and then he was embarrassed. He's made to feel embarrassed,
yeah,
and I don't think that's right. I mean, the gentleman, the officer on the other side, clearly didn't understand how serious it was to him. I didn't take it very seriously, in my opinion. So I was distraught. Seriously, I felt for Kwame at this point.
yeah.
I was angry, like it was my brother.
Yeah, I second everything that you said. That was just as difficult to watch as the actual assault itself because
Right.
you see, the Kwame, this man, be vulnerable, and report this assault, this violation, and the police officer whose job it is, to take this seriously and to do something about it, just kind of, very condescendingly asks him, just questions. Well, why didn't you do this? And and so when Kwame's trying to explain who this dude is or how he met, the look on this police officer's face just says everything. And it gets to a point where Kwame is like, you know what? Never mind. Am I free to leave? And he ends up leaving, right?
Yeah, in my opinion, that officer checked out before Kwame checked out.
Oh, absolutely. The minute Kwame said what he was there for, the officer checked out.
Right.
So, fast forward, the Arabella is she's taking part of a writing summit where she is to read an excerpt out of her book. And she asked if Terry could be the one to read it. And Terry, of course, was happy about that. So the night of the writing summit, as the audience, we don't know what's going to happen, right? So Terry chickens out. It's too much pressure for her reading in front of all those people. So now Arabella has to go on stage.
One thing I think we missed, I think, which was, I think she made I think Michaela made a point of this to put it in the scene in there. She could at least cut it out because it didn't have a lot of meat to it, and that's probably why it was missed by a lot of folks. But when she went to the publishing company, the two non-black people were saying she should have. They didn't say she should have contributed to this particular writing event, but the owner,
Cece, yes,
Cece, who was black, who found out Arabella was black, said, "Well, why didn't you?" And then they both looked at the two representatives, like at the managers, and like, "Well, yeah, why didn't you ask me?" But they did ask Zane. You see?
Okay.
So on top of her feeling, like she was violated, further, she felt like she was left out of something, and this guy was supposed to help her, and he didn't even mention it either.
Right. So that was odd.
That was odd, and I was like, "Come on, man! I mean, you first of all, you're going dog her out, and then you're going on top of that, you're going to get in front of her and not tell her something." Fine,
right?
Got it.
And there was another scene where Cece's assistant, who was white, kind of told Arabella that his nature is hard. Talking about Zane, at a pre-party from the writing summit.
I remember that.
And so that was a revealing moment, because I think in Arabella's mind, she's like, "Oh, he's a serial offender."
Bingo. Right? Exactly.
And so that's when the wheels start turning. Fast forward, it's at the writing summit. Arabella is on stage, and we as the audience are thinking she's just going to read something. She does not.
She did read. She read his behind, boy.
She makes this announcement that Zane is a rapist.
Ooh, with his mom there.
Listen, my heart dropped.
I was like, dude, pick your face up.
Just pick your whole life up. Like, throw the whole man away. Listen, so of course he's wildly uncomfortable and embarrassed. He wants to walk out. Everyone's pulling out their phones, and now he goes viral. Arabella's admission of what happened goes viral. And so really quickly, because we need to get to episode 6, the way that episode ends broke my heart, because she's in her room, she's back at home in her bed, she's having a FaceTime call with Biagio. She finally tells Biagio what happened. Biagio's reaction is devastating. He says to her, "If you watched your drink, you wouldn't have been raped." What a typical male response.
Yeah, it was. I don't know how he really feels about her, because we don't really know that yet. But part of that frustration was, he is an Italian drug dealer. Him going to the cops and giving DNA is not a good look.
It's not a good look.
It's not a good look. So I'm like, all right, I can understand the emotional part, but bro, you could have handled that a little differently, as you just found out she was raped.
Yeah, that was a little gangster to me. But on the flip side, had she been more focused, I don't know. That's debatable. But I think the fact that Michaela decided to insert that line, I think, to me, speaks to the difference of opinions that a lot of people have about those type of situations.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty dope. So Episode 6, it's titled The Alliance. This was a bit left field, and I appreciate the break in the storytelling, because she could have easily continued the story from episode 5.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just,
So go ahead.
no, just as easily she could have. You're right.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what I was expecting. So this was a pleasant surprise. So Arabella attends a support group for rape and sexual assault survivors run by their high school acquaintance, Theo. And in a flashback to 2004, teenage Arabella and Terry intervene with a young Theo, right? Theo's white. This was such a layered episode to me. It was really, really good, right? It was the introduction of a new character and a new point of view as it relates to sexual assault and rape. And the flashback explains who Theo was and what happened to her in high school. And so the flashback is Theo initiates sex with Ryan, a black student, and later lies and says that he raped her at knife point. Now, luckily, Ryan took photos of them having sex and sent them to his boy, right? And I'm so glad that he did that, because Theo ended up throwing his phone out the window unbeknownst to him.
He paid for those photos, remember?
Right. He paid her what, 20 or 30 quid? I don't know.
Yeah, $20, $30, which would be like $30, $40 our money.
And so she leaves and she stages this alleged assault by going to the bathroom, cutting the back of her thighs, right? And then goes to class. Her head is on the desk and there's blood running down her legs, right? Young Terry is seated behind her and sees this, and of course summons the teacher.
Right.
Fast forward, it's this thing, it's this big thing. You have Ryan, who's now accused of raping her at knife point. And who are they going to believe? The little black boy, the little white girl?
Right. And that one, again,
Right.
that's the whole wraparound about rape and race and all this other stuff. How many brothers are in jail because somebody said they raped them, a la Emmett Till.
Exactly. And so many more. And so, the alliance is kind of what helped Ryan out, because those photos, and it was young Arabella and young Terry who took those photos, that evidence, to the principal, and that's how Ryan gets vindicated, right? And so the scene changes to now young Theo. She's back at home, and her mother and stepdad are kind of, railing on her, like, why would you do this, whatever. And so that's when we first learn that something might have happened to Theo when she was 7 by her biological father. The stepdad says, why would you make something up like this, knowing what happened to you when you were 7 years old? And then another mic drop moment. Theo reveals that, oh, my biological father never assaulted me. My mother made me lie about that so she can get full custody.
Yeah, and that
sunk.
Which was a very, 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 very tricky for Michaela to do, showing the opposite side of the situation. Yeah. So that was really good of her to do that.
And so what blew me away about this is, how are you running a rape and survivor support group if you lied about it in high school? So are we to believe that maybe something happened to her, like legit after that? Or is she a mastermind liar like her mother, who is benefiting from other people's trauma? Like, I didn't understand that. I loved it, but then it kind of left me with WTF.
Well, I think the fact that she made him pay 20 quid or 30 quid for those photos, which she really, if you saw the traumatic look on her face, she thought that Ryan liked her.
Of course she did. Right. So that lets us know her state of mind.
Right. So she was pushed back by the thought that he was taking pictures. And, when Ryan said, well, so-and-so took pictures as well, and he sent them to me, and I was like, wow. So that cheapened her. And of course, that falls into the self-esteem thing. And of course, her father, the history with her biological father, and so on. I mean, these are the things that laid heavy on her head, not the excuse that she accused Ryan of doing what she said he did. But you kind of see the thought pattern or thought process in that.
Yeah, I love what Michaela Coel is doing with this. I love the direction she's taken it because she's given us a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different things to think about.
Yes, sure.
And so I can't wait to see what the upcoming episodes where they go.
Yeah, yeah, obviously I'm taping them, but I can't wait to watch them. I watch them by myself, and my girl's like, "Ooh, I'm gonna kill you," but I watch them anyway. But I watch them anyway because I actually have to do the show. But I like the way she plays both sides of the coin.
Yeah,
I like the way that she tells it raw, very
yeah.
raw.
Yes, and I think if you're gonna talk about this topic, it has to be raw.
Yes,
It
it has.
has to be uncomfortable. It has to ruffle some feathers in order for people to have a good dialogue, a meaningful dialogue about this, right? Especially with men. The fact that you and I, a man and a woman, can have this conversation, that that means something. Because I don't know that, men and women are talking about sexual assault, to each other and trying to unpack the heaviness of it all.
My thing is the roads to improvement are paved with potholes.
Mm, ain't that the
So you are
truth?
going to hit a pothole. Don't try to swerve around it. Go right through it and take the consequences because that's going to lead to change. Oh, the pothole. If you swerved around that pothole, nobody's going to fix it. It's not there. You hit
Exactly.
that pothole real good. Now somebody has to fix it. It has to be filled in. People have to be filled in. Fill in that space.
Yeah, right.
Emotion.
I agreed. Listen, if you all are not watching I May Destroy You, get with the program,
Or
please.
I may destroy you.
We will destroy you. Right? It's a worthy show.
Yes.
It's worth your time. It's worth your time. Well, I mean, thank you for tuning in to this episode, to riding with us through episode 4, 5, and 6. We'll be back next Thursday. Uh, we look forward to seeing you.
Yes, we do. L, again, nice haircut.
Thank you.
Congratulations on everything.
Thank
And
you.
I will definitely be back here with L and go and watch I May Destroy You.
Please do. Please do. All right.
Uh, Peace.
Over and out.